Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Love & Company's webinar, Is It Time to Renew Your Brand? Today's session, just as a reminder, we are recording and we will be sharing with the attendees the link for the recording tomorrow, the day after the webinar. Well, my name is Lisa Puri. I am one of the principals of Love & Company and the Executive Vice President of Client Services and our Marketing Strategy team. And I'm joined today by my fellow principal, Tyler Sprecher.
Yes, I'm also, as Lisa mentioned, one of the principals, Executive Vice President of Creative and Brand Strategy. Been with the organization for 23 years and lead the company's branding efforts.
Well, we're excited to bring this topic to you today. And before we jump into our content, just a few housekeeping items. We do have all of the attendees on mute, but you will see on your GoToWebinar control panel a place where you can type a question at any point throughout the presentation, and you can see where that little test question popped up and where you can click send, and then it'll rise to the field that we will see. What we're going to do is we'll be collecting those questions, and we've allowed time in the presentation at the end to be able to go through those questions, and we'll restate the question that we see, and then we'll provide an answer and try to get to as many of the questions as we can in the hour that we have allocated. I will go ahead and turn things over to Tyler to get started on our content.
Sure. So the topics we're going to be covering in today's webinar include what do we mean when we say brand or branding? What are some of the top reasons for rebranding your organization or community? What are some of the main benefits to rebranding? What are some significant things to consider before rebranding? What are the main steps in the branding process as we do it here at Love & Company? And what are some case studies that demonstrate the results of effective brand renewal? And then, as Lisa said, we'll leave some time for questions and answers at the end. So let's jump right in. So what do we mean by brand or branding? Are we talking about branding irons, as this visual might suggest? No, of course we're not. When we talk about branding, particularly as it applies to the field of senior living, we are essentially talking about three things. First, a promise of performance, and that consists of those things that the organization, product, or service can and will deliver consistently to its target audiences, day in or day out, come hell or high water. An example of this for a well-known product, such as Tide laundry detergent, might simply be something along the lines of clean laundry. It's that promise of performance. Next, we have claims of distinction, and those are what differentiate or set apart the organization, products, or services from other providers in the marketplace today. So going back to our Tide laundry detergent example, this could be something like whiter whites. So again, creating a claim of distinction. And then third, a unique lifestyle or consumer experience is essentially what the consumer's experience is as a result of choosing a brand. And an example of this might be seen in Starbucks, where the consumer is not simply purchasing coffee, they're purchasing a highly customizable and uniquely blended product, handmade and delivered by a highly polished barista, and comes with the opportunity for a social engagement experience and the social status that comes with the price of the drink. So as you can see, branding as we've defined it is far more than just a logo or a tagline, and although those are basic elements of the brand's identity.
Well, thanks, Tyler, and we always find it very useful to make sure we're on the same page regarding the definition, because it can mean so many things to so many people when we say brand. But what I wanted to speak a little bit about is, well, why? Why are we having this conversation today, and why is this so important to our field? And there are a number of reasons why your organization or your senior living community may rebrand. You've heard me and other Love team members talk about in previous webinars or even at conferences about the changing field of senior living and the services that are provided to the audience. So you may be in a situation where you're seeing a changing consumer demographic, the dynamics in your particular market may be shifting. You also may be seeing a real shift in your competitive environment. So there may be some new and shiny competitors that are coming in with different services, maybe different residential options, different fee models that you have to be up against. You may have new audiences that you need to appeal to. I know we're talking a lot in the field about the boomers who have very different expectations than previous generations, and what are they looking for in, as Tyler was talking about, that promise of performance and those claims of distinction. You may also be struggling to attract top talent to your workforce. Again, from that competitive environment, we see a lot of communities and markets across the country where they're really, kind of struggling to make sure that they're getting the top performing talent, which really has an impact on what types of service and experience they're delivering to their residents and consumers. Also, you may be in a situation where your organization is changing. Maybe you're expanding or you're adding new communities, or maybe you're even merging with another organization or another community to create a new entity. Many communities we're seeing these days and organizations are adding new service lines. They're looking at how they can further expand their mission and be able to serve additional populations. And that may really be making some changes to your organization. You may be currently a traditional life plan community, and now you're adding home health services, life plan at home, maybe short-term rehab that you haven't had before, or even we see a lot of long-term care campuses that are now expanding into full life plan communities, and that really changes the dynamic of who they are. It's also possible that your current brand just simply no longer evokes your mission or your vision. And your community maybe has evolved and changed over time, but your brand has really not kept pace with those changes. Related to all of these things, your brand and all of the related materials and the messaging you have may not be relevant. It may be outdated. It could maybe perhaps not stand out from the crowd and just seem a little cookie cutter, or kind of worst case scenario, your name is shared with maybe an unsavory character or concept, that you're realizing, hey, we're running into challenges with being able to market and sell ourselves because of the misunderstanding there. So, that's all fine and good of why you may want to rebrand, but another key question that communities need to ask themselves is, well, what is it going to do for my organization? Where is that ROI? So a proper and effective brand can result in increased market share. When you have, as I mentioned before, you have that image and experiential alignment where when people come to your community and they've seen your ads or they've seen your materials, is that really aligned? And so communities that do have a proper brand, their prospects, their referral sources, potential employees have that consistency. They see improved closing rates. They see a greater comfort that brand, that promise of performance is what they can expect. As Tyler mentioned before in his example, when he was defining branding, top brands can charge a premium. Starbucks coffee certainly comes with a higher level of expectation of what you're getting for that money than if you were to go into your local grocery store. May not actually be any better in actual taste, but it comes with a whole different level of expectation of experience, and they can charge for that premium. Organizational and cultural synergy. What we see with communities that really have a clear idea of what their brand is and have clearly communicated that internally, they see increased morale, improved productivity, lower staff turnover, and really an improved ability to identify candidates that truly fit with your organization, thereby reducing staff turnover. So now you've said to yourself, okay, you had me at hello. We're already thinking we need to embark on some rebranding. Well, what are some of the things that I should consider before I actually embark on rebranding? So a few things to consider include your current brand equity. Most existing communities do have some level of positive reputation associated with their current brand. So one of the things you need to be thinking about is making sure that you are not losing that. How can you bring that forward as you're looking at perhaps modernizing your brand or expanding it to make sure that you're including the service lines and covering the markets that you have. You also need to think about stakeholder support. So it may be that you need to embark on some internal outreach and PR to gain the support and explain the why to your current resident base, your staff, board members, family members, important referral sources that are strong feeders for your current environment. Culture. You may want to, you need to think about how your existing culture may have an impact, not just on the fruition of the branding process, but the branding process itself. And that also relates to approval process and layers. Who needs to be involved and at what points? Again, with the concept of stakeholder support, we find it very valuable to get a real 360 view of the perspective on the current brand and what it needs to be from a variety of people. So you need to think through and have an idea of who needs to be involved up front to provide input, and then who needs to be involved in approval processes throughout. Because while rebranding can be somewhat subjective, so you're going to have a lot of potential opinions to reconcile. Your brand vision and your operational and programmatic need to be in alignment. I mentioned earlier about experiential alignment. You've also probably heard the term truth in advertising, and you need to be looking at, okay, here's my vision for what the brand should be, but you need to make sure that your operations and your program is actually delivering on that. So Tyler mentioned about that promise of performance, of what can your audience consistently expect day in and day out from your brand. You need to make sure that that is what they're actually going to experience when they come to your community, either as a visitor or as a resident. And finally, cost of implementation. Once you develop a new brand, whether that includes a complete new logo and identity, or it's just an expression of that brand, thinking through not only the cost, but the timeline of a rollout for signage, maybe brochure materials, your website, certainly your lead generation, all of those things need to be thought through and at least have a broad idea of what that will entail before you jump feet first into it. So with that kind of context on more of the, I'll say the dry strategy side, I'll turn it back over to Tyler to get into some more of the fun, exciting things with the creative.
Great. So, as Lisa was saying, once you've, weighed the costs of implementation and the other considerations for branding, you make the decision to move forward. You need to know a bit about what you're biting off here, what you're getting yourself into. So we thought it might be helpful to talk about some of the main steps in the branding process. And we're not going to go into these in any sort of detail, but just give you kind of a high-level look at how we approach things. And you're going to want to choose a trusted partner that can lead you through these steps, the first of which is brand discovery, where you'll work to draw out the basis for developing a brand strategy through an interactive brand visioning workshop or brand discovery interview sessions with some of those key constituent groups, such as the organization's board, the leadership, the staff, current residents, adult children, and prospective residents. You're going to then take that information and develop a brand strategy platform. Now, this is where you'll boil down and convert the information that you glean from the discovery phase into a foundational document that succinctly identifies and relays the brand promise, the brand differentiators that we talked about, but also things like brand benefits, brand personality, and ultimately the brand position. And that's what we refer to as the distinctive position that an organization wishes to hold in its products or its brand to occupy in the marketplace or in the minds of its defined target audience. And this brand strategy platform is often what we talk about as an inward-facing document that we are looking to get buy-in from all the internal constituents in terms of the direction that we want to take. Next, we have brand identity creation. And so once the brand strategy is in place, it's time to develop some of the more creative aspects of the brand. The creation of brand identity materials could include things like naming or renaming. Again, as Lisa mentioned, how much equity do we have in our name, or is there something about the name that needs to be rethought? Also things like logo design or a refresh, and then tagline development that can succinctly capture the message that we want to communicate through our brand. Next, we have the brand expression creation. And brand expression is often comes in the form of designed mood boards. This is where the planks of the brand strategy platform document, that inward-facing foundational information, is expressed through visuals and tone copy that demonstrate how the brand will look, sound, and feel when it's brought to life in marketing communications. Then a brand guide. So after the brand has been fully developed, it's important that it serves as the touchstone for all communications going forward. One of the key tools that we can use for ensuring the new brand is followed and effectively implemented throughout an organization is a brand standards guide. And that's something that can be helpful not only to people working within the organization, but when you partner with others outside your organization to make sure that that brand is really effectively being implemented consistently.
We've heard, and I'll interject here, we've heard from many communities that we've worked with that a brand guide is particularly helpful if, different departments are outputting materials and communications. It just really provides someone who, might internally be referred to as kind of the brand police to really have that tool to be able to let the, HR department or the development department or, if the higher levels of care, assisted living, rehab, if they have a different set of people who are marketing and executing on, marketing and admissions, being able to keep all of that consistent under the same umbrella. The guide is that useful tool for everyone, but both that inward facing and that outward facing pieces that Tyler just described are very helpful to make sure everyone is singing from the same hymnal, so to speak.
Yep. And actually, it's a key tool that can be used in this next step, which is the brand rollout. And that's, a planned communication of the brand to your internal audiences to help ensure that everyone is in the organization is a brand champion. Like Lisa said, kind of talking the same talk, walking the same walk when it comes to brand implementation, and that there is alignment between what's communicated to the market and what prospects experience operationally when they choose to interact with your organization.
And I think that's particularly important because, when we talk about the branding, it is a big part of it is certainly your brochure materials or what your website looks like, the pictures, the colors, but it's also how do your dining staff or your nursing staff, your housekeeping staff, how do they talk about the organization, and how do they relay that message, that excitement, that sense of uniqueness. It's important to be able to have everyone in the organization internalize that. So it goes beyond just the department that is responsible for sales and marketing and the designed pieces that they put out.
And then last, we have brand actualization. And that is where the brand is applied to marketing tactics and communications that are identified in your marketing plan and then rolled out to the market in ongoing campaign efforts.
And what I had mentioned before about something to consider being that cost, and there's also timing. Something when a community embarks on rebranding, it's very much involved in, we're making a seismic shift in what we're doing, and so there is that consideration of investment, and not all organizations can necessarily just do that. You see sometimes when a bank merger happens, and you drive around on the weekends and there's a kind of a cover over the sign for a while, then all of a sudden on Monday everything's revealed and they've got all new everything. Well, most organizations in our experience can't do all of that at one time. It's just not realistic, but it is possible to look at how do we prioritize, where do we take this message out first, and how do we start to bring it into our new lead generation materials, as Tyler was talking about, that actualization. That's part of that thought process of being able to look at how do we roll it out in a way that makes sense for the organization and makes sense for your budget.
Great. So we thought it might be helpful for us to share some examples and results of brand renewal work that we've done for clients, including some before and after visuals that demonstrate the changes that were implemented. And first we have Augsburg Village in Baltimore, Maryland. And at the time that we were engaged to help Augsburg with their census, Augsburg Village's full name was Augsburg Lutheran Home and Village. And you'll note that the word Lutheran in the name, which was through our discovery, we found out created a perception of a community that was just for folks of the Lutheran denomination. And additionally, the word home was not surprisingly projecting an image of stereotypical nursing home at worst, and a less than vital lifestyle at best. And the results of our discovery research focus groups were really all that was necessary to convince our clients of the need for a change. That same discovery process also supported our assertion that the word Augsburg on its own carried no negative connotations, and that it garnered significant regional recognition, kind of going back to that existing brand equity. It had that brand equity that was positive, and it was desirable to retain that and unnecessary to walk away from as we developed our recommendations for reshaping the brand. Our primary option and recommendation for a name change was to very simply remove the words Lutheran at home and to rename the community as a whole Augsburg Village. So retaining Augsburg made it very palatable to the community's board, and pairing it with Village projected a unification and fluidity among the levels of care within the community's continuum. And when developing the community's new logo, we also made a very conscious decision to retain the subtle symbolism of a heart, while moving away from the overt symbolism of the cross. This too was appreciated and easily supported by the executive director and the board. And then beyond the naming issues or obstacles, as we look at the front of their previous collateral material, we found that there was very little within the community's existing brand messaging or marketing materials that would communicate its unique selling proposition. And that proposition was really desperately needed to appeal to the Lutheran and the non-Lutheran demographics alike. So in our new approach, we elevated aspects of what we identified within our brand strategy platform as the community's authentic and very marketable brand attributes: attractive, attentive, attainable. And those aspects of the points of differentiation and brand promise really focused on that beautiful environment there within the Baltimore area, the attentive nature of the staff and services provided, but also at a very affordable price, which was something that really set them apart in the market. And then, while also really retaining a clear but not overpowering connection to that Lutheran sponsorship of the community. The changes also reflected the elevation of the nonprofit nature of the community and its faith-based heritage over maybe a more heavier emphasis on the Lutheran denomination. So in fact, a very key component in striking the appropriate balance of the organization's history and its ties, while projecting the desired open and welcoming brand posture, was a new affiliation line, by Lutherans for all. We carefully crafted that line to communicate the Lutheran heritage and faith-based while eliminating perceived barriers to entry with the way it was positioned with by Lutherans for all. So after we were able to present this approach to the board, we were told that we clearly understood them or got them, and that the executive director was empowered to work more independently with us to develop the new marketing collateral, a website, and corresponding lead generation campaign materials.
I was just going to add too, you know, I know we hear from many communities that ask the question of, you know, we're very proud of our faith-based heritage and it's very important to us, but we find that we're struggling a bit with getting people to understand that we're open to all, or we don't seem to have the same appeal that we used to people that are of the denomination that is the same as our you know, our foundation. You know, how do we balance that? How do we stay true to our heritage while still you know, broadening our audience? And this is a great example of how we've seen that work very effectively.
And so the changes to a more faith-based, nonprofit, and value message resulted in a number of great results. Lead generation doubled over the prior year from 268 to 478. Move-ins bumped from 16 to 29, an increase of 81%. Census rose from 82% to 90%, and has continued to climb while we've been working with Augsburg to the point where they are now full. And as the community's board, key stakeholders and residents did not feel that the Lutheran roots of the community were compromised in any way. So a real success story there. Next, we have Pennswood Village in Newtown, Pennsylvania. And Pennswood's branding and marketing message faced some similar challenges to Augsburg, and that it needed to move away from an overt denomination and more towards reflecting the natural, open-minded, and inclusive nature of its Quaker roots and the CCRC and its residents. Pennswood's existing collateral materials were very homespun and even portrayed Quakerism in a somewhat stereotypical and sometimes less than flattering way. And so by carefully demonstrating an understanding of their current position and thoughtfully considering the nature of their inclusive Quaker culture and values, we were able to convince them that they would actually be more true to their mission by proactively projecting a more authentic brand expression and one that would allow them to welcome and include and serve even more seniors. So to authentically capture the true spirit and nature of the community and its Quaker values, we worked really closely with the sales team and the leadership to plan and execute a photo shoot that would be a critical component in achieving that goal and capturing the brand strategy and expression. And as with the development of a new logo and tagline and tone copy, there was a lot of push and pull with this Quaker community where, you know, all are included and inclusive in the decision-making process, a lot of give and take throughout the process. But as a result, we collaboratively produced a product that was authentic to them while proving effective in its appeal to prospects. And so speaking of being effective, the work that we did to align the brand expression with what the prospects actually encountered when they visited the community and experienced in its culture produced some outstanding results. There were 29 sales in the first 6 months of our engagement as compared to 19 sales for all of the prior year. And there's an in-depth case study on Pennswood Village that can be seen on the Love & Company website if you're interested in seeing that.
And in both of these cases, as you've seen, they were existing communities with, you know, long-standing history, you know, some aging product, you know, so definitely had a lot of challenges that I'm sure many of you who are joining us today can relate to of you know, an existing community, and kind of hitting that, you know, plateau from a lead generation or a sales standpoint, or even seeing census kind of backslide. And so we were excited to share both of these real life case studies, because not only certainly are we proud of the creative work, but we're exceedingly proud of the results that the community was able to achieve, that were in great part tied back to the work with the rebranding.
So what about branding for expansions or blue sky projects? And these may be things that are on some of your radar screens. You know, the branding process for blue sky communities or expansions is similar to that of existing communities, except you're working with much more of a blank slate, which can be both a blessing and somewhat of a curse, but fun and interesting challenges nonetheless. And so we have a couple of case studies that we'd like to share with you in that regard. The first is Westminster's community of Florida. Their Westminster Baldwin Park community. They approached us and asked us to help launch this satellite independent living neighborhood, Westminster Baldwin Park. The location was just 1 mile from its Westminster Winter Park community, a CCRC that had served the Winter Park, Florida area since 1965. And so to convey the story of those two communities kind of coming together for a more complete CCRC, we conveyed the story with a compelling positioning line that was developed. 2 distinct campuses, 1 exceptional way of life. And this theme was the centerpiece for all of our creative development. What drove and sustained success was the competitive and distinctive brand positioning that we created. We promoted Baldwin Park as the place for younger seniors to enjoy luxurious, active senior living with Lake Baldwin views. And part of our marketing strategy was to target guests in their early 70s versus the average move-in age of 81.5 years for other area CCRCs. So quite a departure in terms of the age demographic. And with a brand story that spoke of a singular experience without the stigma of care on site. For those through the discovery process that we found, you know, didn't really want to be thinking about the rest of the continuum just yet. But that said, while Baldwin Park had a rapid recovery rehab facility as part of its new offering, residents were reassured that if needed, they had the access to a full continuum of care at the nearby Winter Park campus. And so we introduced this position with a soft launch in February of 2015. The brand differentiating creative included an engaging landing page that we quickly expanded to a microsite. And then we continued building momentum and awareness with strategically placed newspaper and magazine ads when we had the opportunity to bring things to life through testimonials of actual depositors. We had the opportunity to promote special events such as groundbreaking. We were able to do that through that advertising, those advertising efforts, and then ongoing custom direct mail that also promoted those special events at Baldwin Park. And here too, we had a number of really surprising results. The average move-in age for the community is projected at 75.4 years. Also an unprecedented 61% of those investing out-of-pocket money for upgrades to reserved apartments a year before they were even going to move in. We also helped Baldwin Park go from 0 to sold out in record time. Our efforts were so successful, we went from soft launch to scarcity marketing in less than 6 months. And while the project goals were to be 70% reserved by May of 2016 and 95% sold by May of 2017. The actual results were that they reached the point of being 100% sold out by May 20th of 2016.
And we hear a lot when communities and organizations are coming to our our market intelligence department and our strategy team and saying we're looking at expanding or repositioning, and we're really interested in examining the possibilities for a satellite campus, which has its challenges of not being contiguous with maybe, in this case, the full continuum of care or other types of services. But this is a great example of where a satellite campus has absolutely been a huge success for the full life plan community or CCRC. And so this we thought this would resonate with many of you who may be thinking in terms of should I dip my toe in the water with looking at satellite campus as an option for my organization.
That's a good point. And so for our next case study, we have Trinity Landing, and this is a true blue sky community that's in development by Lutheran Services of North Carolina in Wilmington. And here we thought we'd take a little bit of a different approach that we would share the actual language from the brand position section of the brand strategy platform that was developed, while at the same time showing you how the brand expression mood boards work to communicate that position. The positioning that was developed from the positioning statement section read, Coastal Carolina senior living at its best. Your destination for an active, independent, engaged waterfront lifestyle designed for successful aging with the security of a full continuum of healthcare services should your needs change. And then next we developed a short defining story of the brand, which communicated that Trinity Landing is the perfect senior living choice for those who wish to stay in or relocate to the desirable Wilmington, North Carolina area, and is a true complement to who they are and what they enjoy. And this was expressed through mood boards and the tagline that was developed for the community, which is land here, live here, and love it here. And so we developed some content around that to communicate the different aspects of that short defining story of the brand. Then we further demonstrated the brand through mood boards that each focused on one of the key differentiators or supporting points from the brand strategy platform, those things that set them apart in the market. And first we have discover a life full of friends that's completely peerless. And the platform really spoke to the fact that as the only true senior living CCRC waterfront community in the region, Trinity Landing offers active independent seniors the ability to shed the burdens of home maintenance while gaining the amenities, services, and support needed to enhance the lifestyle they love while successfully aging and becoming more actively engaged in the greater community. So again, that point about being the only true senior living CCRC waterfront community in the region was driven home by the point of being discovering a life full of friends that's completely peerless. Next, we said that this private, serene, secure setting provides intercoastal waterway access, outdoor courtyards, nature trails, and paved walking paths that interconnect through the community, as well as thoughtfully designed green spaces outfitted to year-round use and with shady areas in the summer and fire pits and heat lamps in the winter. It's really focusing on the aspects of that campus beauty and the amenities through the headline and copy that said, soak up the waterfront beauty and excellent amenities. Third, the platform talked about Trinity Landing boasting proximity and accessibility to all of the arts, cultural, shopping, dining, and supporting opportunities in Wilmington, with excellent transportation at hand and planned affiliation with the University of North Carolina, Wilmington for continuing education and lifelong learning experience. And that was demonstrated through this board that spoke to delight in all the convenience of a small coastal town. Fourth, backed by the area's long-standing, faith-based, reputable, non-profit sponsor, Lutheran Services of Carolinas, and strengthened by the acclaimed Trinity Grove Full Continuum of Care, Trinity Landing provides seniors of all faiths with confidence in the decisions they've made for their financial and healthcare futures. And really being able to speak to different aspects of that messaging here with this mood board. And then finally, we spoke in the platform about while offering so much, Trinity Landing is the ideal size for engaging connections and personalized attention in a comfortable, relaxed atmosphere where flexibility and choice prevail, and where an intimate, know you by name level of service and attention is delivered consistently by caring, dedicated staff who walk together with all we serve. And that was expressed through this final board in the brand expression of embrace faith-based loving kindness and nonprofit stability. And so this work for Trinity Landing is currently being rolled out and actualized. So we're not showing results or speaking really to that today. But this Blue Sky project is off to a great start in terms of lead generation.
Absolutely, and they've really built a very strong priority depositor list already in the early stages of launching, and they're ahead of goal from that perspective. And soon is planned to move into that 10% conversion phase. And some of the feedback that the team there is hearing from a lot of prospects is, I wish it was actually opening sooner. So, that's something that is very gratifying to hear, because there is a sense of excitement and urgency from the audience who really want to enjoy this community. And as many of you who may have been involved in Blue Sky or are considering it, one of the greatest challenges from a marketing and sales standpoint is being able to effectively paint that picture for the prospect of what is this community going to be? What is it going to be like to live there? What will my neighbors be like? And so being able to take that vision, articulate it in that inward-facing brand strategy platform. So all of the constituents are on the same page of, yes, this does describe what we intend for this community to be, then informs that outward-facing, being able to really paint that picture, establish that feel, that tone, so that people can really start to envision themselves living in that community. And that's a key component of the early success in driving that excitement and that sense of urgency with your priority deposit and then your 10% pre-sale stage. Well, that covers our planned content for today. It looks like we did well to stay on time. Now we've reserved about 15 or it looks like 18 minutes for some questions. And, if anyone has a particular question that they would like to enter in the box here, I know we've covered both existing communities as well as a couple of different types of Blue Sky and expansion with satellite campuses as well as traditional campuses. What you'll see here that we thought we'd share as well is a couple of our clients that we've worked with. One that's reflected from the case studies here, Augsburg, another that's actually out on the West Coast, that we didn't actually show all their materials either for sake of timing, but have really seen a number of communities that have been very satisfied with the effectiveness of their rebranding and have found it to be certainly a good investment as an organization. Well, certainly if we don't have any specific questions that have come through, but certainly if there are any questions, Tyler and myself, you can see on the screen here our email addresses. We'd certainly welcome any questions that you may want to take offline. There's also, I think, any questions that you enter later, I think will certainly come through our system as well. And as I mentioned at the top of the webinar broadcast, We have recorded this, so we'll be sending out to all of the registered participants the link to be able to access that recording, so you'll be able to see both the visual and hear the audio from that as well. Well, we certainly thank everyone for your time today, and really appreciate all the attendees that we've had, and hope that you found value in describing the branding. Again, we look forward to answering any questions anyone has, but have a wonderful afternoon.
So we do have one question that has come in here. It says, so is this just a marketing effort, or did the existing communities have to make other changes in operations to deliver on the new brand promise? Would you like to address that, Lisa?
Sure. That's a great question. I really appreciate someone sharing that. So just to restate again, asking about a marketing effort, or did the existing communities have to make other changes in operations? And that's really an excellent question. And that's why it's so important early on to have the visioning conversations, because what we find is when leadership, for example, comes together and starts answering the questions, and we kind of create the opportunity to have some dialogue there, sometimes we realize that there hasn't been a lot of discussion over connecting on what the shared vision is. And so there have been cases where early on in that stage, being able to say, this is really what we see the brand being, and let's aspire to that. And so it does help the organization, concurrent with working on that branding, start to make some shifts in maybe moving more towards a hospitality focus in their dining and their housekeeping side of things. A lot of times when we do rebranding, it's also coupled with the organization is looking at doing some repositioning. So they may be looking at, we're changing our clubhouse, and we're bringing in additional dining options because it's something that we recognize is important for the market. And not only do we need to put those things in place from an amenities, service, operational standpoint, but also wanting to make sure that our brand properly reflects that, and those things can be worked on concurrently. There have been cases where early on in the stage, some of that visioning conversation happens, and we work with the organization to maybe look at, hey, we need to maybe do a little bit of a timeout to get some clarity on some of that operational and brand alignment before we continue executing fully the branding. But I think one of the most beneficial things about a brand that's done effectively is one that is true to who you are today, but also is able to grow or paint that picture for what the vision is for what the organization is looking to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And it is possible to develop a brand that captures both of those things. So hopefully that was kind of like a long-winded answer, but hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, that was good.
Do you have anything else to add, Tyler?
Yeah, I think that, another thought there is that, we do have, a number of our clients who come to us and say, we don't really know where we should be heading, and we're trying to, make some decisions about that in terms of, what are the seniors in our market area looking for? How do we compare to, other communities in our competitive environment? And one of the tools that we've been able to use, I think, really effectively that kind of helps to inform the branding process is marketing and sales assessment. Mm-hmm. That gives us the opportunity to work with our clients and their communities to be able to really kind of take a top to bottom look at where you stand in terms of the competition, or in terms of what the expectations of the current senior audience is in your region, and then be able to make moves towards operational changes as well as direction for where you want to take the brand and the types of experiences and things you want to develop as a result.
So it looks like we have another question here that that reads, so how do baby boomers, that demographic wave, change the challenges? A lot of marketing is just not working anymore, which I know we hear that as well. And, you know, it's certainly about shifting the messaging and the visuals, but it's also shifting how and where and when you're communicating with this audience. So, you know, as I'm sure, you know, many are seeing, you know, the effectiveness of traditional advertising as well as direct mail has certainly changed. I mean, direct mail is certainly still a workhorse today in the field, but we're really seeing a seismic shift towards engaging with the boomers online. And I'm probably not saying anything earth-shattering to most of the folks, but it's just a very different way of having that conversation with the boomers, in addition to having a message that is going to be much more active, much more choice-driven. You know, the baby boomers, a big thing with the baby boomers is they want flexibility, they want choice. They're, you know, many of them are planners, but it's a very different expectation that also goes right down to the product and the pricing. You know, and our market intelligence team works with a lot of organizations that really evaluate looking at the product, how does it align with the market, and helping them shift that, which does go back to an earlier question, which is that was posed about, you know, what else needs to happen other than just marketing. And oftentimes, as I said, that's coupled with changing product or changing contract choices to align with the new market. So we have another question that's come in. It says, with the rule of consider the audience, is the audience changing what they need and want to hear? That's an excellent question. Tyler, do you have anything you want to share with that, what I'm thinking?
Well, I think as we take a look at what we're seeing in terms of the development of blue sky communities as well as expansions, certainly this younger audience is looking for things like larger square footage and things like that in the residence options. As Lisa mentioned, wellness is high on their list. They're also interested in other kind of somewhat related but somewhat unrelated kinds of things like green initiatives and LEED certification and so forth like that in terms of how you're going about building your new residences or your campus or community. And I think that there's certainly from a messaging perspective in terms of what they want and need to hear, I do think there's been a significant shift towards self-actualization. What is that whole mind, body, spirit experience that they're interested in? It's not just am I going to be taken care of, or what's my need for healthcare security in my older age or older years, but what are those things that I want and be able to actualize in my lifestyle.
I think too, what we see a lot when we evaluate existing materials and whether it's older materials or even more current ones, it's talking a lot about features, and even in talking about the benefits, it's still rather standard in how it's going about, discussing, well, we have a pool, we have a fitness center, and, we have residences that have washer and dryer and, wall-to-wall carpeting or things like that. And picking up on what Tyler was saying, a lot of younger audience is really looking for, well, what does making this choice to move to a life plan community or make use of your services, if it's some other type of service that you're providing, what is this going to do for me? And if this is what I want my older years to entail and involve, and I shy away from saying retirement because many of them are, not looking at being stigmatized as they're just retiring, but how am I going to be able to continue to experience that type of lifestyle that I currently have or am envisioning myself to have at that stage in my life?
So another question that we received is asking us to explain the importance of the difference between features and benefits. It's a theme of the startup community too, it says.
That's a great question.
Yeah, so to Lisa's point, as she was talking about, there is a lot of through the sales process as well as the marketing process. Oftentimes, as she mentioned, we see lists of features, what the community actually has. But the difference of what we're talking about here is when we talk about benefits, is what do those features allow me as an individual to be able to do with my life? How do those features or services free up my time and enable me to be actively participating in other things that I'd rather be spending my time on? How do those things benefit me financially? How might they benefit me aspirationally? All those different aspects of what somebody may be looking for. I think that's the key difference when we talk about the difference between features and benefits.
So it's possible you could say, we have these dining venues and they're open from these hours to these hours, and even doing it in such a way where you're kind of describing that, but talking about it from the benefits perspective of, if you're a person who, you like to, get up early, get your coffee and a light breakfast and then go run, and then you want to meet up with friends and, be able to just grab a quick deli sandwich, maybe a little bit on the late side before you, head out and maybe go to, a show and then come back and have a late dinner. Well, that, telling a little bit of that story or using testimonials where you're really talking about the benefit that expanded dining hours and multiple dining venues can actually have, that's, perhaps a little bit of an example of the difference between features and benefits.
And I think also too, to what Lisa was talking about in terms of the, listing of features from the different dining options. She mentioned earlier that I think that this, newer, younger audience is really looking for flexibility and choice, and how that translates into the experience. So, flexibility in dining, programs or options that they have in terms of, how they're charged for that, a la carte or however those things are being handled, really provide an opportunity for communities to take a look how they can offer choice.
We talk a lot in some of our discussions about planning for the future or, the changing kind of competitive landscape within the senior living field. And there's so many more options now for people to choose to plan for my, older years and potential healthcare needs, whether that's I want to move to a community that has a full continuum, or I want to stay in my home, or I want to move to a community that only has, maybe independent living and then make another decision for something later. It becomes so much more important to really identify what makes the experience at your community different than a slightly similar type of option that's down the street or right next door or right across the street. So that's where, I think in terms of, you go back 20 years and there was probably maybe 1 or 2 cell phone options. And now, today there seems to be a new one all the time. And it's not just cell phones, it's you got your phone on your watch and you got your phone, FaceTime on this tool over here. And there's so much more, so many more options competing for the space. And that's very similar to what we're seeing in the senior living field. And so it becomes so much more important to really define who it is and that you will most appeal to, and how do you do that? Because every community does not need to be for everyone. So it's very important to really own who you are, what you offer, what your niche is, and who your audience is, and really align your brand and your messaging with that to most effectively cut through the rest of the noise to get to those people who are the best fit for your particular community and your culture. Well, it looks like we are right on 2 o'clock, and I think that was the last question. Oh, we got one more. Maybe we'll just go ahead and do one more. It says the intangibles of social connections and purpose are the hardest to find, but most important to longevity, health, and happiness. I think that's a great statement, and I think it really does play into the concept of when you have those initial steps in the discovery process of really unpacking what your brand is. So we talked, I mean, this is called, you know, is it time to rebrand? You know, and unless you are a absolute blue sky, there's been no planning yet, there's been no discussion of what it is, there is something that's already established for what is that brand. And so a key part, especially for an existing community or organization, is not creating something brand new, but helping to ask the right questions to draw out what are those key components of your brand and put some form around it. And I think that point about the intangibles of those social connections and purpose, it is something that sometimes we do struggle to have communities articulate of what are you doing that relates to these intangible benefits. But a key thing about the senior living field, whether it's a full life plan community or even, you know, a home health service or an at-home program, that you're doing these things and you're in the business and successful because you are able to provide those benefits and being able to you know, bring them to a verbalization standpoint is the first step, and then being able to say, how do we take this out to the market in a compelling fashion?
And I think oftentimes, you know, a key way of being able to do that and expressing some of those intangibles and social connections and purpose is really something that can be accomplished through testimonials. And once you have depositors in place of what they're looking forward to in a blue sky community, or once you have you know, residents and some of the younger folks, you know, that have come on, and you're really being able to express, you know, what it is that they're realizing as a result of making the choice to move to your community, we have the opportunity to really dig in and tell that story through some testimonials.
Great. Well, we want to thank everyone again for your time and attention, and hope you have found this content valuable. Again, be on the lookout for the link with the recording of today's webinar. And certainly if there's any follow-up questions that you have that you would like to reach out to us about, please do. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation or answer those questions. Everyone have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.